welcome back. Welcome back to each other's soulmates. We took a week off. We are here back again with season 1, episode 8. Three's a crowd. Three's a crowd. But yes, we were gone for a week. Thank you so much for your patience. We just got busy with life, like as always, decided to take a little break. So that was nice. During that break, I was on another podcast. So that was very fun. I was on the Duder Man Homie podcast with some of my other comic friends. If you want to catch that episode, it's on Barbacoa Core at YouTube and at Spotify with my homies Pat, Jake, and Scott. So that was a really great time. If you want to check out me not talking about Sex in the City and other crazy menagerie, you can go check that out. But that was a blast. I'm gonna thank them again for having me on. It was super fun. That's what I did during the break. But yeah, thanks so much for your patience. We were super excited to get the next episode out, so I'm glad we're back in the groove of doing our pod. So hell yeah. So this episode's very fun. It's called Three's a Crowd. And within the title, if you could imagine, we are talking about threesomes. So hell yeah. So
Yeah.
we are excited. Let's go. It's going to be a fun topic, fun episode.
Yeah, so we thought we'd start this episode off talking about celebrity threesomes. Just, to kind of throw it out there, threesomes are kind of this like interesting topic that it's discussed in depth throughout this episode from a few different perspectives, and it's pretty cool. But as far as celebrity threesomes, I guess
dream celebrity threesome, like your ideal two celebrities, you're like game on, regardless of gender. Who are they? We want to know yours. We're going to say ours. So we are excited to hear what you guys want to say too. So Tina, who are yours?
I want to say maybe like Kristen Stewart and Gerard Way.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that's a good like old emo kind of vibe. We're hitting Twilight, we're hitting MCR. Yeah, that is a pretty hot and heavy.
Kristen Stewart when Twilight came out, Kristen Stewart now. Maybe Gerard Way when Twilight came out though. Like
there we go. Yes. Yeah. Little switcheroo.
Probably back when he had his like red hair or something. I don't know.
Ooh.
But what about you?
Oh, immediately. I think about this daily. Chris like Motionless from Motionless in White and Rhea Ripley. They look incredibly similar. If you guys don't know who they are, they look really similar. A lot of time, I know when Rhea Ripley came up in WWE, everyone's like, "Oh, she looks like that Chris Motionless guy. Are they brother and sister?" I don't really care if they are or not, but that's something I think of daily. But that's for sure dream threesome right there.
Man,
if you didn't know I have a type, there you go. That's 110% it.
And on that note, we would love to hear everybody else's celebrity dream threesomes. Like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna hear some interesting ones.
Yeah. Again, regardless of gender, just two celebrities you just want to get it on with. Might as well. We all have it. We all have an idea.
We've all thought about it.
We've all thought about it.
Like,
at least once. And
yeah, no, on that note, threesomes.
Let's get into the episode.
So, Three's a Crowd. We start this episode. Was it season 1, episode 8?
Mm-hmm.
And we start off with Charlotte, who is going from charity benefit to charity benefit, and she kind of like sees this guy like over and over again at the different events, and they kind of start seeing each other. His name is Jack, and he is an architect, philanthropist, and the sex was amazing. And in this first scene, we kind of pan into this moment where they just like finished making love and they're having pillow talk, and he asks her about her fantasies. Now, like, when you're asked about your fantasies, like, just that, like, what are your fantasies, Bella? Like, what is your immediate, like, thought? Like,
I have been asked this recently, and to my surprise, my answer was car sex.
yeah,
Yeah, oddly enough, car and elevator seem to be my ideal currently. I don't know why that is. I'm not really big into like exhibitionism or like being caught, but I think it's my thing right now is the urgency. So it's like I can't wait to have you. I can't wait till we get home. It's either happening in this elevator, going to the car, or in the car. And there's something about a back seat. It's so nostalgic, might as well.
I think
Yeah.
lately I'm kind of into this, like, I know it's summer, but like I'm a spooky bitch. I love spooky season all year round. And I don't know, something about like a graveyard or something where it's like kind of is that crazy? Like, I mean,
No, I just wasn't expecting it. You're like, yeah, graveyard.
I don't know, just like
I love
like,
that.
like just kind of like, I don't know.
I feel like all the people would be looking at me. I feel like all the souls are going to be looking at me, and that's why I can't do that shit, man.
You think so? You think they'd be upset?
I don't think they'd be upset. I think they'd be like, hell yeah, new channel, bitches. They're like, look, Skinamax is back. Woo!
Wild, cause like you hear something in the distance, you're like, was that a ghost? Like you know, and
they're like turn her over.
Like my husband suggested also like us going to like a haunted hotel like in San Antonio. We have
I like that.
And that's something he suggested a couple times. I'm too.
We have. San Antonio is one of the biggest paranormal cities in the nation, truthfully, actually, because of everything with the Alamo and so forth. So we should you know what? For my birthday, we should do that. We should go to a haunted hotel. Not like you, me and your husband, but like, just check it out. Talk about threesomes.
It's like you being the ghost.
You, me, and the ghost. Oh, God. We are so happy to be back. Thank you guys for being so patient. But we love doing this. I'm glad we're back.
On that note, please also let us know your fantasies. We would love to kind of like play that game, see what's up, see what kind of trends there are. I'd be interested in getting that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on that note, Jack asked Charlotte about her fantasies. And immediately her thought is like, oh, I want to own my own gallery. I want a house in, was it Maine? Like, this beautiful place. And he's like, no.
Very waspy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh. And then, okay, she says that she wants to do it in her parents' bed.
That's a common thing. That's like a common trope in media or shows. People are like, oh yeah, like my parents' bed. I even think Rachel says it in Friends. Yeah, oddly enough. I don't know. I think it's because it's like an off limits thing. So I actually recently heard from someone who's a psychologist. They're like, your kinks are like determined. Huh?
Like a fuck my parents kind of thing, like in
no. It's like it's like an off limits of like the area or just anything. Because I just recently had a psychologist tell me like it's normally like what you're told not to do is what happens. Because we're like, hey, well, how does breeding kinks work? If that's the case, and it's like, well, have you ever been told by your parents don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant? And it's like, you may have internalized that as a teenager, and now you have a breeding kink. And I was like, I never thought about that before. It's very interesting. So,
interesting. Yeah, I do kind of feel like fantasies are a way to kind of explore things that you wouldn't be able to normally explore in a healthy way.
Yeah, absolutely. As if everything's consensual,
Yeah, as long as that's the case. But yeah, no, he corrects her and finds out that she just wants to have sex in her parents' bed, in a polite, loving way.
Charlotte.
Missionary. And he's like, just basically like, well, my fantasy is us having a threesome with another woman. And
Mm-hmm.
he's not like being aggressive at this point. He's just kind of like putting the idea out there. And
Yeah.
she's not like into it necessarily. She's not like, yeah, let's do that. But she's also
Yeah,
not
no,
saying,
it's Charlotte. Yeah,
yeah.
she's also not just saying no off the bat. She's just kind of like,
So,
oh, okay,
which is kind of interesting in my opinion. Like, Charlotte's usually a bit more like guarded about this kind of stuff. But,
I think they were just talking. She was probably just curious.
yeah. But then we go to the next scene and we have the girls at lunch, brunch, whatever it is they're doing, and they're talking about threesomes. And,
Yeah.
Samantha makes an interesting point. She's like, threesomes are the blowjobs of the 90s, which I thought was kind of interesting because it's like this 90s perspective of what this sexual act is to them versus like the different decades. Because, like as time goes on, people are a bit more sexually free.
Right.
I wonder what the threesomes of the 2020s would be.
Mm.
Like, have threesomes come to a point where they're like normalized even yet? Like,
I think it's pretty. I don't think it's. I mean, I think anything off the norm is still always going to be taboo. I don't think it's normalized to the point of like every person in a relationship is like, let's do a threesome. But I
yeah,
do feel like it's more easily accessible. I feel like you go on any dating app, you will almost always find a couple on there wanting to experiment with a third.
yeah,
So, you know,
yeah.
kind of it's more accessible now. It's more accessible now for sure. So, I don't
Well,
know. I don't know if there's a trend of like something sexual in the 2020s here. Now that I'm
if
thinking of
anybody
it.
thinks of anything or knows like what we don't know, let us know.
You
Like,
know what the trend is? Wanting to
yeah,
actually have a genuine connection with someone.
that's
Cuz
not gonna happen. I'm just kidding.
everything's just so
It,
bullshit.
yeah, it's a bit more difficult nowadays, huh?
It's very interesting. And I think people are actually less like likely to kind of focus on their like kinks and like ideals too. I think a lot of it's just like I want to hook up. It's not like, oh, I want to hook up for this purpose. It's just kind of like a hookup thing and then gone.
Yeah.
With like the trend of, I feel like situationships is the trend right now of just
That's,
like, I'm going to
yeah,
have someone on the back burner. They're there, I'm going to be out with my buddies. I'm going to text you at 2 a.m., see if you're available kind of thing. That's the sexual trend right now, at least in my experience. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, as they continue talking, they kind of come to this conclusion of like the only way to do a threesome right is to be the guest star.
Very
The
true.
couple gets to come in and screw and then gets to leave, and she doesn't have to
That's
worry about what this did to her relationship.
that's what Samantha said. That was
Yeah.
Samantha's input. Yeah, for
And
sure.
I feel like that's true.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be completely transparent. I've been in a couple of threesomes, and I am the guest star in both scenarios. So, or all scenarios. Other than that, I feel like it's so hypocritical because like me in a relationship, I'm like absolutely not, no. But then I'm like, oh, I'm single. Yeah, let me be the unicorn. Because you could just
Yeah.
pull out because you're just like, I have no commitment here. This was just a fun consensual thing. I'm out. Bye. See you guys never kind of deal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like, so on like to add to that, like being that person is like the best scenario of this scenario. Um,
Yeah.
like they also kind of talk about like the benefit of having that third person be somebody that they know or somebody that they don't know. Like, should you get somebody that's like a trusted friend? Or should you get somebody that is like completely random, like you'll never talk to them again?
I don't know. I think that's depending on the couple. I think
Yeah.
that's depending on the strength of the couple
And the
and what
specific
they're comfortable with.
relationship of the couple to that third person.
Yes.
I feel like that would like make the case because like
Because I've had both scenarios. I've had it
yeah,
where it was strangers, and then I've had it where it was someone I knew. And
and
so, but both were fine. It wasn't negative either way. So it's kind of like, I don't know, but I was the third party, right? So I wasn't there for the after effects of like their relationship. So
yeah, and I mean there is something also to be said about how each person relates to the experience as far as like can that friend have had sex with those people and still be a friend,
be
or
still
does
be a friend.
the dynamic for them and
I
now
think it will
they
always change the dynamic
yeah
regardless, right? That's you're at a different level now. It's like, okay, I mean, we're still friends, but it's like we're friends who have slept together, and that makes things a little bit not tricky, but it's just different. It's a different kind of feeling. It's a different kind of you're like now don't like these were my buddies for so long, and it's like now I know every inch of them, and you're like interesting. It's just an interesting dynamic. So but I feel like it could probably go either like north or south in any scenario. Um, yeah.
hmm.
Try
Well,
it, don't. What happens? See what happens.
do what makes you happy, right?
Do what makes you happy.
Yeah. Well, within this conversation, they talk about a few perspectives, like we've already mentioned. They also mentioned that, like, like in Charlotte's case, for instance, Jack is buttering her up and trying to kind of like
You
get
know
her.
what's some bullshit though? This during the scene where they talk about it, Miranda being like, "Oh, he's just talking. He's just trying to butter you up. He's just saying these things just to make you feel good about
Yeah,
yourself." First of all, that's kind of bitter as shit because Charlotte's over here saying like he thinks I'm so sexy, he thinks I have this, he thinks I have this like sexual power and tension, and Miranda's just like, "Oh, he's just bullshitting you." And I'm like,
okay,
"Really?"
I hear what you're saying. I also hear what Miranda's saying because I have been in Charlotte's shoes in this scenario.
Okay.
I have been in a relationship where the guy got it in his head that he wanted to try this, and he was
Mm-hmm.
doing what Jack does, which is like he slips it into conversation, he mentions it,
Mm.
and they that does happen. They'll like blow the
So
smoke
he
up your
was genuinely trying to butter you up to
yeah,
get what
like
he
I'm
wanted.
saying that like Miranda is a bitter bitch sometimes, but we love her, but like she is like that sometimes. But
But
in the
you'll
same,
see throughout the
I
episode, I feel
think
like that's a lot of insecurity blasting too,
yeah,
because she's
but no,
like,
Miranda's like
yeah,
insecure central in this episode, like crazy, because like in this conversation, Carrie, Charlotte, and Samantha all agree about like wanting they would be open to having a threesome within the three of them, but then
right, with
no one
Charlotte.
mentions Miranda, and Miranda is like visibly and like verbally upset, like
Upset.
making it known, and is just
She's
like
like, what do you mean you guys don't want to have sex with me?
yeah,
Kind of
like
thing.
bitch, didn't know you were queer until when? Like, I'm sorry, but what straight woman gets angry that her friends don't want to have sex with her?
It's insecure. It
That
was
that doesn't
insecurity. It's that
give
insecurity
like,
brewing of just like, what do you mean? And you'll see throughout the episode, she genuinely struggles with the idea of like, what do you mean no one wants me? And
yeah,
that's what she's kind of going through throughout the rest of the episode, like you'll see. So
yeah, but Carrie comes into this for like summarization.
idea, yeah.
It's like were threesomes the new sexual frontier? And then they also kind of ask like, are threesomes the relationship of the future? And personally, I think that I've known and heard of a lot of people that are very open to the idea. I've
Mm-hmm.
never seen it happen successfully, like long term,
Yeah.
personally. Um, oh, and then another thing, you mentioned this word, but I wanted to kind of like identify it more.
Mm-hmm.
Unicorn.
A unicorn. Yeah.
Yeah. So a unicorn is that third person that comes into an already established relationship, and
Right.
they're called a unicorn because they are just so rare. They're hard to find.
Yeah, they're willing to be the third party in a threesome with an existing couple, regardless of gender. But like a exclusive couple, and you're the third party. Yeah, unicorning. But you
Yeah,
see that on dating. You see that on dating apps a lot. Like it'll be. That's what they're saying. They're like looking for a unicorn, basically. Um, so yeah, very very interesting. But I think it also kind of it's not exactly the same, but I do think it touches and skims polyamory a bit too.
yeah,
I do feel like that's kind of in the same wavelength. I feel like if a couple is open to maybe being poly, that a threesome might be like a segue into that. I'm not saying that is the case, but I think maybe if that's something you were willing to invite or willing to talk about, I feel like a threesome might be a good segue into being like a into polyamory.
yeah.
So,
I could definitely
yeah.
see
Which
that.
and I do feel like polyamory is definitely more normalized now.
Yeah,
So I feel like maybe there is some like correlation between threesomes in that, but I do feel like I have seen polyamory be more prevalent in the people I know, or just being spoken about than ever before. I know
yeah,
some people are still very like, ew, what the hell, and you're just like, hey, that's their relationship, that's their marriage, let them be happy. So
yeah.
yeah.
I could definitely see that. And I mean, yeah, cross cultures and stuff. There's benefits
Yeah.
to it, and depending on the people, it can or can't work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next scene, we have
Mm-hmm.
Samantha and the married guy, Ken.
Oh, Samantha.
Ken. So yeah, no, Samantha is absolutely knowingly sleeping with a married man in this episode. His
Which,
name,
disclaimer, I don't consent to that shit. As a Samantha stan as
yeah,
I am, and I love Samantha Jones, I will never condone cheating. I will never condone things of that nature. I think everything needs to be consensual. I don't believe in cheating. I feel like if you're going to have a third party, or if you're going to be poly or open, that needs to be discussed. In her scenario right now, that is not the case. She is
no,
basically having an affair
it,
with a married man.
no, she like
So,
literally is, because he opens up saying like, "I love that you're not my wife," and she says, "I love that too." Right after they finish.
oh, Samantha, as much as I love her, the scenes like this do eat at
Yeah,
my soul quite a bit, unfortunately. I
it's
get that she's supposed to be the open, free one, but it's like you can also have a little bit of accountability in these things too. Like,
I think it's kind of part of her character development though, because
I
like,
agree.
although we're 8 weeks in, this is like episode 8 out of like
Yeah,
almost 100.
about the whole
So
rest of the series.
up and down, um, as she did with Ken, um, and yeah, no, like it's yeah. If cheating's a trigger for you, this scene's kind of hard to watch because like
Yeah.
he even like openly compares, like, he's like, that thing you do with your hips, I can't get my wife Ruth to do that, she's so boring. And it's like
Yeah.
that guttural wretch of like, can you imagine being Ruth?
I do think that's a common thing, though. I do think when I see married couples talk about, like, oh, well, oh, I only get it maybe on my birthday kind of thing. And it's really unfortunate because you're like, being, I don't feel like there should be a stigma around marriage of like, oh, well, now we're just never screwing ever again. It's like the person you're with for the rest of your life, if that's what you want, you should be doing whatever the hell you want as many times as you want. And I understand life gets in the way. And I've spoken to people who are married, other than you. It's like sometimes the mundane routine can get in the way of like experimentation or passion, and which I understand. But I feel like to avoid that kind of like lull, you have to keep it going. You have to
Yeah,
keep the spark. We've talked about that
well,
before, is keeping a spark. And it's
yeah,
just unfortunate that that's still a common trope. You do hear about that a lot, of like married couples being like, oh, well, maybe I'll get some on my 30th birthday, or, you know, like stupid shit like that. And I'm just like, it doesn't have to be that way. You should want to have sex with your husband or wife or partner. That should be something you want.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I've never found that kind of humorous.
Yeah, like we talk about that on the podcast I was in. Like, you know, we were talking about a wife being referred to as a ball and chain. And she was like, you're never going to say that I am your old ball and chain, you know? And I'm like, I agree. I feel like that's a really kind of just like crass way of talking about the person you chose to spend the rest of your life with.
Well,
So,
it's making fun of them too.
yeah, it's really derogatory in the sense of like, oh, I'm just gonna call you. I'm basically calling you an inconvenience.
Yeah.
That's ugly. That's ugly. So,
Yeah.
but kudos to her for being like, don't ever fucking call me that.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah, no.
Next scene.
Next scene, Charlotte and Jack are on a date. And this is like after he's already planted the idea of like, I want to have a threesome. So like he's very much like into it at this point in this date. Like he's pointing out women who are just like barely kind of looking in Charlotte's direction and is like, look, her, let's have a threesome with her.
He's really pushing it.
And he's really pushing it, and she's like laughing, but she's also asking him to stop. And it's like kind of being coy, but she's also kind of like, stop. Like,
yeah, she's trying to be polite, Charlotte.
Yeah. And then this woman comes up and asks Charlotte for a light for her cigarette, and Charlotte's like, I don't smoke. And she even like says something that it's like, it's kind of rude. She's like, that's a shame. Like, is that how you took that?
I don't think that was, no, she was flirting. That woman was flirting. Yeah, she wasn't being rude. Yeah, she was insinuating like, oh, okay, because it was obvious in the scene, it was obvious she was trying to initiate something with the both of them. So Charlotte being like, oh, well, I don't smoke. And she goes, you know, oh, what a shame. Like, it was the acknowledgement of this isn't happening. Yeah, it wasn't.
Head. Just like Charlotte's head.
Yeah.
Wow.
Different perspectives for sure. But no, that woman definitely was all like, hey. Because it's like, because you can ask the damn bartender for a fucking match. You know, you can ask anyone else has a lighter, but that was definitely intentional.
That's true. But yeah, no, he's like gassing her up again because Charlotte's like, well, she was flirting with you, not me. And he starts doing that gas up thing. You know, he's like, you have a fire within you and you don't even know it. And she's just like kind of enjoying the attention. So she's like, well, I think she put her hand on my leg, like, and it's just kind of like, with
she's trying to like egg it on.
She's also not like super like going for it either. She's just kind of like, you know,
because this is all very new to Charlotte too. This is new territory. This is something she's never really experienced before as an adult woman. So
that night, Charlotte has an interesting dream.
Got a little sexy dream going on there.
Dream going on over here. In her dream, she walks into a doorway and she sees Jack on the bed making love to a woman. And I think it's the woman who asked about the light, but it's just like a blonde woman. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And she's just like watching them, and she walks a little bit closer and she takes off her robe to reveal that she's naked underneath. And they stop making love and they both reach out a hand to her to reach and invite her into the bed. And as that's unfolding, Charlotte wakes up with a huge smile on her face, like,
which I love the whole nodding to how dreams are your subliminal thoughts.
Yeah.
I love dream and like analysis, and I do really feel like dreams are your brain's way of acknowledging what you are thinking about if you are repressing them. So love that though. But yeah, Charlotte does think about it, but she wakes up being like, hey, that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
That was kind of nice. Maybe maybe Jack was right, and it's kind of validating everything that's going on that, he's kind of bringing up. Because, I mean, she's a grown woman. It's a new experiment. She likes this guy. She's kind of trying to figure out if this is something she's truly interested in or not,
Yeah. But yeah. Next scene, we have Miranda at therapy. And still very upset about her friends not wanting to have a threesome with her. And then, just like you said with the dreams, she says that she had a dream where her, Samantha, Carrie, and Charlotte were in a sandbox and no one would play with her.
Subliminal thinking again. Subliminal thinking again. And of course, the therapist is like, well, what do you think that means? And Miranda's like, being the analytical woman she is, she's like, well, obviously, that's how I feel about, my friends don't think I'm, attractive enough to have a threesome with, or like, that's not what they envision me, as it's, I almost feel like it's this weird rejection sensitivity thing.
Yeah, because she says, like, because the therapist asks her, like, you're attracted to your girlfriends, and she says no, but if your friends won't go down on you, who will? If your friends
that's such a twisted way of thinking.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, what straight woman is that concerned with her friends?
That concern with her friends being sexually into her? Because I would never even like, that's not something I've ever thought of when it comes to like a female on female friendship. I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm attracted to you. If we decide to have sex one day, amazing. Like, it's never something I've ever thought of. So it is interesting how they do kind of bring this up in this episode. Yeah. Why is she so upset about this? I think it's a lot of just like Miranda's rejection sensitivity at this like time of like wanting to feel hot, wanting to feel included, wanting to feel validated. So
yeah, because nobody likes to feel like the ugly friend.
I think that's mainly what they're trying to get at with her character right now. It's like she's trying to feel like included in like, oh, I'm a hot young single woman as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, next scene we have Carrie and Charlotte walking, and Charlotte's telling Carrie about the dream that she had and wondered if it means that she should go through with it, and tells Carrie about the fire that Jack sees within her. And then Carrie lets her know that they make a cream for when you have a fire within you. Like I don't, this dude is gassing you up. Like, stop,
Carrie's always trying to be the comedic relief.
She is. Sometimes it works, but
sometimes it works.
Yeah, no. And Charlotte is just kind of like, well, like, I feel like it's gonna bring us closer if we have this threesome. And Carrie kind of like puts it in front of her and is like, how is you having sex with another person supposed to get you closer to Jack?
Yeah.
And it kind of like comes into this like idea of like why are you having this threesome? I
think she's just trying to like remind
do that. And what are you trying to gain? Like, is this really just a sexual experience for you, or are you trying to use it to overcome something else?
Right. And I think she doesn't want Charlotte to compromise her own laurels of like what she wants in a relationship, because we've brought this up previously. Charlotte's a very like, these are my ideals, and if you don't match my ideals, goodbye. Charlotte very much is like, for she wants to be married, she wants this, but if it does not line up with her, she makes it known. And she may be dipping a little bit in this relationship, and the girls may be like, that could be with anyone too, right? Like, if you and I were having a conversation and I said something out of the norm, to be like, oh, I think I want to do this because of this, and I know for a fact you would be like, are you okay with that? It's something out of protection of your girlfriends or your friend, like, hey, are you sure you're okay with that? Or is this are you just trying to please someone else, even though it makes you uncomfortable, kind of thing? And I think that's Carrie's trying to dance around that with being like overtly like, hey, Charlotte, like, this isn't really like you. Are you okay? Are you just trying to please a man? Or are you really content with this? And so, but also, on the other end, I do feel like Charlotte has really never done something like this. So why not? Why not? If right now, she's like, I really have thought about it. It's not like she's been like a flat no. We just went through the blowjob episode where she was just like, I don't like it. Immediately, she told the girls, she was like, no, I don't like it. It's not something I'm comfortable with. And she told the partner right off the bat. But this one, she's dancing around it. She's having dreams. She's thinking about it. She's kind of egging it on with the man. So it's something she's exploring. And I think that's great for Charlotte's character and her character development of just being like, what is going on? But I think Carrie's being a friend of just like, is this you? Are you okay? Kind of thing. But like, also do you, but that's being a great friend right now. So
yeah. Well, yeah, she kind of just like asks her like I said, like, how is this going to bring you closer to him, and like how is this going to help you get to know him better? And then she
right.
asks like, well, how well do we ever know the people that we sleep with? Which is an interesting question too. It's like, you're here asking me how is this supposed to help me get to know him better, but like how well did I even know him to begin with? Like this
She
is all
said, how well do we ever know the person that we're sleeping with?
yeah.
That's what she's like. That was like the direct quote. And then that's when Charlotte's like, sometimes, or when Carrie's like, sometimes Charlotte says something and she's like the Dalai Lama,
Yeah.
and which I love that. That's my favorite part of this scene. And then she like breaks, and then Charlotte says something like, does my hair look too shiny today? And then Carrie's just like, and then she goes back to being like Charlotte, which is cute because they play on her like cute little playfulness. But Charlotte's not an unintelligent woman, but she is very like more of the hopeless romantic out of the four of them.
Yeah.
So
By far.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, this kind of makes Carrie wonder if someone like Charlotte's considering a threesome, who isn't considering a threesome? And then
Yeah.
here comes my favorite part of the episode. This
is a fun part.
So it's another one of those like interview style moments in the show, but these are all the wanted ads in the paper. So for those of you who've never read a newspaper, there are these things called wanted ads, and people, it's kind of like a Craigslist kind of thing, like, like this person is seeking
I don't think people know what Craigslist is either right now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I don't know if Gen Z is familiar with Craigslist, but it's basically what is the comparison to Craigslist right now?
Like Facebook Marketplace?
Facebook Marketplace? I was going to say the same thing, Facebook Marketplace.
But like back to the wanted ads, basically on the newspaper in these little squares all over, it would be these little mini ads that people would pay money
little blurbs
to put on there. And in this particular like interview section of the episode, they're going over the wanted ads for threesomes. And they have all the different people who might have like placed those ads. Like the first guy is this Wall Street dude who's like balding. He's in an expensive suit. He's like a little older, like 40s. And he wants 2 horny gal pals for an East Hampton fuck fest for his summer house. So he's like,
hell yeah.
Like, I know, right? Like, he's trying to seek like 2 girls to like come and have sex with him for all summer and hang out in this huge house.
Sounds like my kind of plan. But then he says this.
No fatties, please.
And then, sorry, buddy.
And then we have the next guy. I'm sorry, the next woman, and she's a.
I love this woman.
I'm a sweet suburban teacher seeking 2 males to fulfill her wildest sexual fantasies. You be Black or Hispanic, I'll be on time. I need your dick now. She means it.
I love it. I love the interview style, and this episode specifically is so just cute and clever and witty and just, yeah. And then so the next couple.
Yeah. We have a couple of nerds, and they want a Scully lookalike for an abduction fantasy from X-Files. I've never
Yeah.
Files. I looked it up. Like that shit's so funny. So, like
It's
Scully,
just like sci-fi. It's like sci-fi.
it's and then we have the last girl who's like one of the loves of my life. I adore her. This one's you.
I am obsessed. This is me all the way. Hold on. You want me to read it?
Do it in the accent. Can you get the accent?
We'll try it. Me, gorgeous with big boobs. You, a couple with class. Let's experience everything the city has to offer. I'm into museums, blowjobs, theater, and golden showers.
I love her. I love her.
She's so funny, and she's like a cute little chick. She's got hoop earrings, big hair, and just like let's just do this. I love it. That was one of my favorite little like blurbs of Sex and the City in the entire series. That is one of by far my favorite little parts of a scene. I don't know why. It just
We don't know her name, but we love her.
and the way she says golden showers, she's like, and golden showers. I love her.
Okay, next scene. We got Carrie and Mr. Big at his place. So Carrie's tying a neck around Mr. Big's neck, and she kind of poses this question of like,
First of all, the question.
Go ahead.
Oh, this is one of my favorite things. She's like, how come sometimes it's sexier to tie on a man's tie than to take it off? And let me tell you, there is something about a tie on a man. I really just think for me, it's the fact that you have to wear a suit to work, meaning you're making some big money. This ain't no bartender money. You're like on Wall Street. Hello. But there is something really actually like sensual about putting a tie on. I remember I genuinely, when I was younger, I learned how to tie a tie for that very specific reason. I wanted to be the woman who knew how to tie a tie for a man if that ever needed to be. Kudos to my grandma for raising me to be a 50s housewife. But
yeah, really did.
But I love that. I would die. And then Big says something along the lines of like, well, I could get used to this. And I'm like, oh, me too.
Yeah, no, he tries to get sweet with her, but she's like, no, I have to go do some interviews after this. And he's like, what are you interviewing about? She's like, threesomes. And
Yeah.
like, you ever been in one? And he's like, well, yeah, who hasn't? And this is where Carrie finds out that Mr. Big has an ex-wife, which I'm just saying, if you're dating a man in his 40s, like, isn't
it a little... Is it that shocking, right? Or is that... Also, you've been dating a man this long, and this wasn't one of your first questions? No, I'm crazy, right? I run a background check because I'm a crazy bitch. But how are you... It's public record. Let's be fucking real. It's public record, and I'm gonna take a peek. Bear County fucking... I'm looking.
You're probably saving yourself a lot of trouble. I'm
saving myself. I am looking for that divorce decree. If it is not on there, goodbye. I don't care if you're separated. Bullshit. Anyway, but how is this not one of your first questions while dating too? Of like, oh, what are your recent relationships? Have you been married? Do you have children? Those are really important things to ask when you're wanting to be in an actual relationship with someone.
Yeah, but she kind of walks on eggshells around him. She's not good at communication with him. She doesn't.
Yeah, because she's fearful of losing him. That's why.
She kind of does this thing of like all this energy going on inside internally, and then by the time she does try to communicate with him, she's like literally blowing up at him. Like, so no, I don't find it crazy that she hasn't asked him about it yet. It kind of seems like she just...
I think it's crazy, but for Carrie, probably not. But
yeah. I would be crazy for us, but like for her, I feel like it makes sense. She's just like
we also find out later in the series too, And later in the series, she doesn't even know truthfully how old he is.
Yeah.
Just a little like foreshadowing. They're in the car and she's like, well, how old are you? And like she's kind of talking about age groups, and then he brings up one and she's like, really? I'm like, how do you not know how old the person you've been dating for the past 3, 4, 5 years is? You're like guessing. You go to their birthday, you're like, oh, happy birthday. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, I guess
Anyway.
the mystery of Mr. Big. So, yeah, no, she takes this information and runs back to her friends. Next scene, we have Samantha, Miranda, and Carrie shopping for lipstick. And God, freaking Miranda won't let it go. She puts on a lipstick and asks Carrie if it's like turning her on. She's like, it's a little orange.
Miranda.
I'm like, Miranda's a little orange though. But yeah, no, Carrie's just kind of like talking about how like now that she knows about this ex-wife, it's all she can think about, and she's just talking about how him and his ex-wife had wild sex, and that's why they were like married or so good together, and that's better
Yeah.
sex that they have because they used to have wild sex, but they already only have sweet sex.
Now they have sweet sex, which is such bullshit. It's like, you guys have only been dating for a little bit. Like, yeah, it may have like the drunken like beginnings may have worn off, but it's like you're not just, you know, sworn into this way of sex just because you guys have been dating for like 2 months.
Yeah, she's just like she won't communicate with him, and she blows up these ideas in her head without actually like, you know. But anyways, she just makes it clear, like Miranda makes it clear that married men won't leave their wives. Wait, hold up. Sorry. I lost.
Oh yeah, well, because we're talking about they bring up Samantha still sleeping with the married man, Ken. They're talking about that also as well.
Yeah. And Miranda makes it clear that like married men won't leave their wives, which, you know. And Samantha is just very much putting her foot down.
She's like, that's the point.
Yeah, like my situation.
She's like, exactly.
No muss, no fuss.
Yeah.
They also tell Carrie like, well, there's only one thing left to do with Mr. Big, and Carrie's just like, what? Break up with him before he can break up with me? They're like, no.
No, they're like, find the wife, find the ex-wife. To be fair, we are talking the 90s here. We are not talking right now with the rise of social media and the internet. I feel like information like that was not as prevalent. I feel like nowadays you can meet someone and know things automatically. I was just having this conversation actually earlier. I'm like, I'm a bit of a detective myself. If that turns you off, whatever. But I do a little research if I meet someone that I'm interested in, because I'm like, I don't want to be, I'm not a gal to be blindsided. I'm like, I want to know, you know. Half the time I'm like, it's all over the damn internet. You post your whole life on the internet. This is just viable information nowadays. But it wasn't back then.
I think it's incredibly important for people to do that, especially like women. There are so many situations where women have died because they didn't do something like that, and they just didn't know, you know?
Yeah, truthfully, the reason why I started doing that is because I was genuinely concerned of like, I was fearful of like, okay, does this person have a record of domestic violence? You know, I'm actually really curious. And they didn't. Didn't really matter. But, you know, regardless of if they were ever, you know, tried in court or not, you know, but at least you take the time to kind of look at those things. You can see if someone has a criminal record. You can see if someone has, you know, a case of this, that, and that. You want to be cautious. I think just women, not just women specifically, men too. Domestic violence happens with men as with women, with any gender, anyone. So sometimes you just want to be, you're guarding yourself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with looking into things like that. I do think people can go over the walls and be a little crazy with stalking. I feel like I'm guilty of that myself. I'll be like, oh yeah, your mom's name is, I'm like, oops, what do you mean? It happened to be in my last relationship. Truthful, let's be like honest hour. One time I was talking with my ex with his friend in my kitchen, And he was like, he's like, I think I was married in February. I think that's when I got married. I was like, no, you were married October 8th. Or true story. We're still amazing friends.
That is amazing.
Trying to be a better person, okay? I'm trying to be a little more trusting. But the internet is public information. Marriages are public information. Divorces are public information. Just saying. And if you're curious to stalk, if you have any questions, please hit me up.
As Bella releases a second podcast on how to stalk people.
That'd be really fun. Anyway, let's go on.
So Carrie stalks and meets the ex-wife. Yeah, no, she finds out that she works in publishing. So she walks her ass to her office and is like, I'm gonna pitch a
sets up an appointment with her.
Yeah, no, she like actually set up the appointment and everything. And she walks into her office and sees her, and she's like gorgeous, like old money looking brunette beauty,
tall, leggy brunette,
yeah,
beautiful woman. Her name's Barbara.
old, beautiful woman in New York. And come to find out, she does children's books, not adult books. So
Carrie before walking in, she's like, oh, I have 10 minutes of like bodice ripping material. I'm just gonna pitch, so it doesn't seem like I'm here for like an ulterior motive kind of thing. And then Barbara's like, oh, so I never knew you were interested in children's books. And Carrie's like, shit. So she's like, whatever, she's like any writer, I'm gonna have to bullshit a little.
So she pulls an idea out of her ass, and it's about Kathy and her magic cigarettes. And whenever she lights up, she goes to Arabia or New Jersey or wherever with her little magic cigarettes. And yeah, that's the big idea that she had to pitch this lady in publishing. It's a
the lighter.
I come ready.
God, it's amazing. Brava.
Thank you.
I love you so much.
But yeah,
dramatic effect.
God, no, this whole interaction is just so hard to watch, and like I just
very cringy.
can't imagine like having the audacity to do something like this. Like
it's a little ballsy. It's a little ballsy.
I mean, yeah, it's really and it's Barbara just plays along with it too. She's just kind of like
this is what I find interesting. The more we'll see, the more the episode goes on, how like crazy this kind of is. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, and then she says at the end, she's like, "Oh God, she was smart, beautiful, and she got me. I'd have to kill her." I'm like, first of all, why are you so mad? Big's obviously divorced.
Yeah,
they're not together.
Obviously,
why are you so pressed?
Dated this long enough, like, and she's never come up, and she only came up because of something so specific, like.
Right. Right. Anyways,
yeah. So in this next next scene for the episode, Samantha meets her married man's wife by accident. So all of this kind of comes to Samantha was walking in this like little corner shop and is like looking at some flowers, and here comes Ken with Ruth walking in the opposite direction.
His wife.
City, everybody walks, so you have street traffic, so you're bound to run into people sometimes like that. And she's just like, Ken, and he's like, Sam, and Ruth is just like, oh, you know each other. And Samantha's like playing it off. She's like, yeah. And he's like, no, we don't. And he like walks her off. He doesn't even let her shake her
himself in the damn foot there.
Yep.
Because he could have just been like, oh yeah, no, we just recently had a sale together. Because he's like a wine salesman. They mentioned that in the beginning of the episode. He could have easily just been like, oh yeah, her and I just had a sale.
Yeah.
No, he got all nervous and was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like he should, honestly.
Like the day before. So I can imagine he'd be kind of nervous. You know, she did the same thing. Yeah, no, it's so awkward. But I think it's funny how Carrie, in her little monologue, puts it, that afternoon was the first time Samantha had successfully screwed a guy in under 2 minutes. Meanwhile, like, honestly, he kind of screwed himself.
Yeah, and you can see the, like, disdain on Ruth's face, his wife. Like, she's like, she can see in the moment, like, okay, what is happening here? And then she immediately got suspicious of their relationship together, so.
Yeah. And then next scene, we have Miranda at her therapist office again. This poor bitch is, like, going to the therapist, like, multiple times a week at this point, because this nobody wanting to have a threesome with her is just messing her up so bad.
This bitch has been in therapy, like, on the fucking clock, dude. I go every 2 weeks. She's here, like, every 2 days right now.
And she even goes so far as to ask the therapist if he would have a threesome with her.
Right, which was so crazy. I'm like, first of all, what? I'm like, how much external validation are you needing right now, girl?
Yeah, like,
chill.
And mind you, her therapist is like a million years old, bald dude, like in a sweater vest.
Not something, not someone Miranda's like attracted to whatsoever.
Just like actually wants the validation like that bad.
And she wants to feel like an attractive woman.
Yeah,
that's what she's kind of pining at. I feel like this. I think this whole episode, it's not so much as like I want my friends to like want to fuck me. It's literally like, I'm beautiful, right? I'm sexy, right? I think it's her truly struggling with her insecurities.
Yeah.
This episode, more than anything else.
And speaking of insecurities, we have Carrie and Big in bed in the next and Barbara. So Carrie and Mr. Big are making out in the bed, and Carrie keeps on imagining Barbara in the bed with them, like critiquing
the ex-wife.
The ex-wife Barbara. Critiquing her as to how she is being sensual with Mr. Big. Like, she's like, oh, that's how you nibble his ear? How cute. Let me show you how
and let me show you how it's really done,
bitch. And she just can't stop thinking about Barbara, so she stops making out with Mr. Big, and he's like, what happened? Like, and she just blows it off like, oh, I have a deadline really soon and I have to go home and stuff. But it's just like,
she's literally like, they're like actively like making out in bed, and she literally turns over completely, and then just kind of like spaces out, and then he then goes, what the hell, where did you go? He literally was like, you just completely disconnected from what we were just into.
Yeah. And you know, she just can't stop thinking about the ex-wife, and she won't stop focusing on it. And, you know, it was just, I think in this scene, she also asks him about it, right?
Like, how come you never told me? How come, you know, what the hell, blah, 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 you know.
He just tells her, like, it was a long time ago, and there was an alien.
Oh, and she asked, why did it end? Why did it end? Why did you guys get a divorce? What happened?
And he says it was an alienation of affection, which was followed by divorce, which is very vague.
Yeah. And I think somewhere, I think it's at this scene or before, she says something like, well, they do discuss like, well, why did you get a divorce? Or he was like, I was young and dumb. and in love, and then I was young and dumb in divorce court, and like he it was that typical, I guess, kind of first marriage thing. You
Yeah.
marry when you're younger. You don't always typically marry for the right reasons, and it just didn't work out kind of deal.
Yeah.
Which is truthfully, honestly, kind of sad because Barbara's like a babe. Barbara's a babe and she's smart and amazing, but they do, he acknowledges that. He's like, I don't know if it's later in the scene, but he's like, we were looking, so
Yeah.
as that goes on. So
so next scene, Barbara asks Carrie to lunch. So the tables have turned and Barbara initiated this meetup. And when Carrie arrives, her hair is flat ironed and it looks almost
just
like Barbara's.
Yes.
And
which is like crazy as a older woman to want to look like your partner's ex-wife. I think is crazy.
Yeah,
I think that's
Barbara
crazy.
It's like, oh, you changed your hair, and she's like, she doesn't acknowledge it or anything.
I love a good blowout, though.
Yeah, that's true. But no, they have like a 2-hour lunch, and she's like 4 glasses of Chardonnay later, which, if I'm not mistaken, 4 glasses is a bottle, right?
Yeah, it's a bottle. It's pretty much a bottle. So you're sharing. That's a lot of talk. That's a lot of drinking.
Yeah,
it's a lot of conversation for someone you don't really know. So
and the subject comes up of like if she's ever been married, and Barbara's like, yeah, once a long time ago. And I kind of imagine they were like probably married and divorced within their 20s. That's how
they were probably in their 20s because he says that he's like, we were very young. This was a very long time ago. Big's definitely in his 40s already at this point in the series.
40,
so
like 40 right now.
Yeah, this was probably like in their younger 20s or definitely before. I do believe it's definitely before their 30s, if not their early 30s. So.
And Barbara tells her it was a long time ago and that he cheated on her with her best friend.
Which is like, damn, big.
Alienation of affection, huh?
Yeah, because you wanted to fuck my best friend kind of deal. That's rough, dude. Because, like, I get the whole, like, okay, yeah, I want to be with someone else, but then to do it with someone you're close, like your spouse is close with, it's an even bigger dig.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And Barbara asks her back, she's like, well, are you seeing anyone? She's like, no one special. Like, bitch. Little fucking liar. Anyways.
Okay.
So, next scene, and also to set it up, okay, you know that TikTok audio where
it's a very popular audio. At least a couple months ago, it does still circulate, but a phone rings, and then it's like, how does it go? Oh yeah, it's like, hello, I told my wife, and Samantha goes, who is this? And it's Ken on the other line, the man she's been sleeping with. But it's just so funny because she's like, who the fuck is this dude? He's like, oh, just the person you've been sleeping with lately. The person you've been having an affair with. She's like, who?
Totally unbothered. But she's just kind of like, why did you tell your wife? And she's like, hold on, I have to call. So she's on the phone with Ken, and then she picks up the other phone. And here is
it's Ruth,
sobbing, sniffling Ruth, and
which is Ken's wife,
the one who didn't do that thing with her hips that Samantha does, and just telling Samantha like, Ken and I have an unshakable bond, and I'm ready to for this. And she goes back to Ken, and she's like, look, you love your wife. And he's like, no, I want to be with you. And she's like, no, you don't. And
no, you don't.
Ruth. And Ruth is like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Like, I will join you in bed with my husband.
Right, to save my marriage kind
her
of deal.
marriage.
Also, I mean, poor Ruth, but like, what a
Ruth.
badass. She's all like,
Ruth,
no, you know what?
honestly.
She's like, I'll fuck with you guys. Like, I love my husband. Let me keep this going.
That's an interesting, like, okay, like, if you were Ruth,
Okay.
would you ever?
No. But I'm a Leo. Okay, I'm just going to get this out on the table if anyone's ever listening and they're curious to see what I'm like in a relationship. If I am not here, right there, if I'm not your dream woman, I don't want you. And I don't, and that may be, I might be lonely and single for the rest of my life, and that's okay. But if I'm not completely adored right here, you can have celebrity crushes. You can have crushes in person. I get that. Everyone's attracted to someone. But if I'm not here, if you don't hold me here, get out. Out. I don't want anyone new. I am not a polyamorous person. I am not an open relationship person. I am insanely into monogamy. So no, I'm not curious. I don't want to know. You know what? Hold on though. I've also never been married. I don't know. I've never been married I've been in a relationship for quite a long time on and off. Hold up though, because even in that relationship, I've been on and off with someone for 10 years. And one time we did bring up a threesome while we were kind of like in the midst of being broken up and not. And I was irate. I was like, no, how dare you? Why would you even bring that up? And then he was like, oh shit. And and then it never became a topic again.
Oh my god.
I'm too conceited for that. I'm too much of a Leo for that. It's almost Leo season, so I'm kind of already feeling it. But no, that's just not me. If it's you, great. I think that's amazing. I am just not. That is not something I'm comfortable with. And monogamy is very like few and few. I feel like this day and age. So I'm just kind of like, I'm just gonna be a little lone wolf for a while.
That's okay.
We'll see. Which is totally fine. I'm totally content with that fact. Because I'm like, I'm fucking crazy.
Like, it's more.
I want monogamy.
It's
like
more, it's like way more lonely to be lonely with somebody than it is to be lonely by yourself.
That is yes. I think I've been in a lot of relationships of like, I'm with someone. I don't feel great.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I am with someone. And I think that's a sadder feeling than actually just being single
alone
and being with yourself.
Yeah. Completely.
Yeah. I'm way too busy now for that shit too, so
I love
got a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, no. Samantha realized that this whole situation with no muss and fuss became all muss and all fuss. So she was no longer willing to partake. She's a guest star. Series regular is not in her contract. She is not there to fix it.
No, ma'am.
She was just there to fuck. And fair enough. So she dipped. She's out. And
she said, bye, guys.
We have Charlotte on another date with Jack. So they're at...
Oh, yeah. So we go back to Charlotte and Jack.
So they're at another one of their charity benefits. I think this one was for ADHD, actually. And
yes, it was.
A house party.
Shout out to ADHD. Like, we both have it. Fuck it.
We are both good representation for that.
Well, Beatron gang, what's up?
Benefit, and it's a house party. It's this huge house, and it's a masquerade theme. So everybody has masks on, and Jack and Charlotte see a woman in the crowd, and they flirt with her. Like she winks at them, and they wink back, and you know, in all of the excitement of everything, Charlotte like runs away, and Jack follows her. And Charlotte and Jack are alone in a bedroom at this house party now. And they get onto the bed and they're starting to like make out and stuff. And, you know, as they're kind of like being intimate with each other, he asks her like, how did you like that? Like, how do you feel? She's like, well, I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And she's
Because did you talk about the wink?
weird, but
Because
I enjoyed it.
yeah, because they see that girl and they're like, she's like, "What do you think about Peacock?" And he's all, because it's a masquerade ball, right?
Yeah.
And then Charlotte does one of those like winks at the girl and then like winks back kind of thing, and then that was it. Like nothing else happened. But then we're here back up and they're talking about that, and then Peacock walks in.
Yeah, as they're like starting to kind of make love,
like make out, yeah.
And she asks if she can join, and Charlotte says yes. So
yeah, she's like, here it is. Here we are. This is the opportunity for the threesome.
Yeah.
Here we are.
And so Charlotte says yes. And
she willing.
They come in, and the woman sits on the other side of Charlotte, and so it's like Jack, Charlotte, and then
Peacock. The woman.
Yeah, the new.
Yeah, Peacock.
And it seems like it's gonna go somewhere, but then it kind of flopped. Like,
so Charlotte's in the middle, right? And then Jack and Peacock just immediately dive towards each other.
Behind.
And Charlotte's like,
Charlotte's back.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it was behind the back. So they go towards here. Yeah. And she's in the middle, and she's like, bitch, what? Yeah. Because normally, honestly, typically, let's be real, in scenarios like this, almost always it's woman and woman first to make everything more comfortable. Because it is a strange dynamic when you do a threesome like that, because you're like, oh, what is this? Because as the other woman, you're kind of like, I don't want to make things weird automatically. You're like, I'm going to go girl first because that's a little more like sexy. It's a little more like, okay, let's just get into this. Let's go slow kind of thing. You don't automatically go to the guy. You don't. No. Unless you're getting the consent of the other woman partner of being like, I want you two to make out.
Yeah.
Because that does happen in those things. I've been in that situation where it was woman guided of like, I want you two to do this. Let me watch. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Let's fucking go.
My goodness. But yeah,
that's just the reality.
Yeah, no, and unfortunately for Charlotte, that was the reality. So yeah, no.
So she wasn't okay. You know what's crazy about this scene though? I think if I'm kind of upset that the writers didn't choose for her to experiment it. I think if they wrote for the woman to go to Charlotte first, that Charlotte would have had the experiment of a threesome. I'm kind of upset they never let her have it.
Well, I kind of think it's in the title of the episode, Three's a Crowd. I don't think that the writers were actually in favor of it, because at every single point, they kind of shit on it. Like,
yeah. I just think it's sad because I do think regardless of your ideals of monogamy or wanting to be married, I do think it's very important to experiment ideals and experiment with things that you may want, you may not want. I do think it's important to kind of go through that before you like choose a partner, if you do, for the rest of your life. I really wanted Charlotte to kind of have that experience, you know,
because it kind of seems like she'll probably never open back up to it.
Like, this was kind of the first time she kind of was very open towards an ideal that was very different towards what she innately kind of feels. So I'm mad they didn't kind of give that to her.
Yeah, but
because she bails. She's all like, fuck you guys. And she gets up and she leaves.
I can't imagine separating people in that scenario. I would have dipped too. I'd just been like, well, never mind. Like, forget it.
I don't know. I've never been there.
Never been
in that scenario. And I'm like, I was again unicorn. I don't got to be involved in all that shit.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, Charlotte dips, and that's the end of Jack. He gets with Peacock, and yeah.
That's the end of that.
That's the end of that. So we have the next scene, and turns out Miranda's been busy. So she went ahead and found one of those classified ads that we were talking about before where people are looking
earlier.
at threesomes. And she meets a very nice couple, and they're very normal looking, and they're actually like young and attractive as well. Like they're probably about her age. They look well off.
No, they're younger.
They're younger?
They're younger because the woman goes, she was very like, oh my, she sits down. She goes, oh my, they both have this sense of relief. They're like, oh my God, thank God. And so the woman's talking, she's like, we've put this ad out, but everyone we've kind of met is kind of, and then the husband, intervenes. He's like, but ugly, and so she's like, she goes, but you, oh my God. And, they're talking about how like Miranda is very attractive. They're like, oh my God, this is what we were wanting. And the woman alludes to like, well, so-and-so's, I forgot his name, but she's like, he's been wanting this, he's been wanting to experiment with this. So I decided to do this for him for his 30th birthday. So they're about probably 29, 30 years old in this scenario. Yeah, probably like our age right now. And Miranda's around her still like, early to mid 30s right now. So
yeah. So yeah, no, they're very, very enthralled with Miranda, and Miranda's just kind of like enjoying the attention. And she just kind of puts it down on the table. She's like, let me be clear. You do want to have a threesome with me. And just without any hesitation or shyness,
they're both like, yeah, like, yes.
So she excuses herself to go make a phone call, but then she just dips, and she just wanted the validation.
All she needed was the validation. Yeah. She wanted to feel like she was hot. She wanted to feel like she was the commodity. She wanted to feel like she was capable of being the unicorn.
Yeah.
And
she got it.
And that's all. That's all she was chasing this entire episode,
Just the validation. And she also ends this scene with that her therapist wants her to start coming 3 times a week. Yeah, I go.
It's just like, as someone who goes to therapy, that is so much.
That is so much. Like
when
I see my therapist every 2 weeks, and every so often she's like, you want to do a 3rd week? Like, just like, you're fine.
Yeah, I was a weekly gal for a while because it was really bad, and she graduated me. She's like, I think we can do bi-weekly. And so I'm still bi-weekly, but like, because I need to talk to her. I love her. But like, when I got there, I was like, yeah, I'm not as bad as I used to be.
Like, can you imagine?
My bitch would be so tired of me. She'd be like, Bella, again, what do you have for me Monday through Wednesday that we can't talk about in a week? But it's so fun. Like, just side note, like when I do build up to 2 weeks, I'm like, girl, get in, strap in, bitch, because we got a lot. 2 weeks is a lot of time to talk about everything that's happened. And she'll always be like, what are you talking about? What happened in 2 weeks that I'm like, girl, my life is running. 2 weeks is like nothing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, she sounds like she's really fun.
Oh, she's the best, dude. I lucked out with therapy, man. I really lucked out with my therapist. She's the best. Shout out to therapy. Next scene.
Last scene of the episode. We have Carrie and Big, and they say goodbye to Barbara. The little fictitious Barbara that floats around them as,
so
Carrie's insecurity.
She's like a figment in the back of their like scenes.
Of like, watching over them, and only Carrie sees her. And, was it 8 days since they had seen each other again?
Yeah, which is a long time to like not see your partner. Not like a long time, but it's a lengthy time to not see your partner. It's over a little over a week,
because like the last time they saw each other, they were making out or trying to, and then she like backed off, turned around.
She got all distant. Yeah.
And he's like, "What's the matter?" She just like makes up this bullshit excuse. So it's like, that happens, and then 8 days later, you finally see each other, and even then, like, when you see each other, it's like awkward and stuff. So Mr. Big, honestly, I love his sense of communication here. He just like nips it in the bud. He's just like, what's going on? You're talking to me like I'm a stranger. Like, what are we doing here? And
yeah, he's like, the food, he was like, said something like, oh, well, how was it? She's like, oh, yeah, it was great. Food good, whatever. And he's like, no, the food was terrible. And we talked to each other like we were fucking strangers. What is going on?
which is honestly
Like,
so hot. I love when he does that.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
for men to be like, bitch, talk to me.
Yeah,
You're like,
I'm like,
okay.
wow. Oh my gosh, I love that energy. But no, Carrie admits like that she met his wife and she knows why he cheated. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
I know you know because she told me. And she's like, she told you? And he's like, she told me. And it's like, nobody can be mad at each other right now, I guess. Because there's.
But honestly, yeah,
like,
right. Because both were being both were being essentially sneaky. Because one, you're still talking to your ex-wife. That was not something I was aware of. I just found out you were married before, and I was upset with that. Not only am I upset with that, now I have to worry that you're still talking to her. What the hell? And then it's like, but okay. Also, side note on all this too. So Carrie and Barbara were having all of these situations and exchanges. So when did Barbara know that Big was dating Carrie? And Barbara was also playing on the fact because Barbara knew this entire time she knew Big was dating Carrie for whatever reason, because obviously they still spoke.
but also,
So what the hell?
Manhattan's a small island, for one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that those circles that they ran in with each other are like they still have like overlapping friends. And Carrie is well known enough in New York City that people just know who she is because they see her.
Yeah. Well, she said when Carrie walks into Barbara's office, Barbara immediately was like, I'm a huge fan. Immediately.
I can imagine, like, Carrie writes a column about sex and she refers to the guys that she's dating and stuff. And if you remember in the episode, Mr. Big introduces her to the people in his crowd as like, she writes Sex in the City. So
right.
That got
but also though, it does insinuate though that he still routinely speaks to his ex-wife.
Yeah. Suspicious.
To also not disclose that to someone, that you're dating that's a problem. You should say that. You should say that to the person you're dating, because that can make the person that you're dating very uncomfortable. So,
which is not cool.
And never. No. That should always be disclosed.
But yeah, no, they kind of throw it in each other's faces that they knew that the other one was being shady. And
right.
He just kind of exacerbated these, like, we had a threesome because we both knew we wanted something or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And, the ex of mine that had suggested that we do the threesome, that was at the end of our relationship when everything was falling apart. And I do kind of resonate with this scenario, that can be something that people try to put in as like a band-aid over a situation that's just bleeding all over the place.
Right. Rather than just being accountable and being like, hey, this isn't working. Like they're trying to segue it into something,
else to kind of like distract from what's really happening. And that kind of leads to the ending of this episode where Carrie's just saying, like, the real appeal of a threesome is that it's easy. It's intimacy that's the bitch. Like, it's hard to find true intimacy.
True.
It's easy to find people
that is
to fuck.
Very true. Especially in this day and age, we are still struggling with that in the 2020s. Carrie Bradshaw, my God, is intimacy an issue? Yeah. And not so much as intimacy, but real intimacy. Because let me tell you, I have been with men who are very intimate with me in public and things, and then they're like, bye. I'm like, oh, that was a really nice encounter. I didn't know that you can just turn off intimacy for your own gain. Amazing.
It's wild too, like the build up in certain scenarios where they kind of like make it seem like it's gonna be something big, and then they do that. It's so weird.
That is definitely in my experience as a, not older adult, but I'm an adult. We're getting to our 30s. To see men who are in their later 20s put in a lot of effort into something you genuinely think like, oh, okay, like, yeah, obviously there's some sexual gratification here. We're sexually into each other, but like there might be a little bit something more. To see all that effort put in, and then to then get nothing after, you're like, okay.
This could have just been sex, but okay.
Right. If that was just communicated up front, I think like that's the weirdest thing. And I'm curious. I don't know if a male wants to disclose this information, but I actually have talked about this with other men. I was like, this is something I just recently went through. How did this guy put in so much effort to just not want to ever talk to me again? And they're just like, they both said, they're like, you're just not used to men trying so hard for you, but we would. He's like, they're like, men would try a lot for one thing. They're like, you're used to just they're like, you're maybe just used to a little bit of effort and then you gave in. They're like, but men will usually like throw down a red carpet for one night. They're like, you're just not used to that. But some men will do that for one night for you.
Wow.
And I'm like, damn. Yeah, I was actually very kind of like, interested about that topic. I was like, for just one night, I was like, very shocking.
Yeah.
Very shocking. But
can I comment on that?
It's life. Sure.
We genuinely want to hear what y'all have to say about these certain
Yes.
like even if it's like not necessarily in our
palatable,
like
yeah,
or palatable, like I want to hear what y'all have to say about these things because it's so interesting. Like, we compare what it was like in the 90s to now, but like we only have our perceptions and our views of what's happening now.
Right.
Everybody has their own perspective. Like just a few episodes ago, we learned like 2 or 3 like words that we'd never heard of to explain a phenomenon that we were discussing, and that language that we're gathering on the subject is just so cool. So let us know what
that's one thing. Yeah, we talked about this before. I didn't realize like taking on a Sex and the City podcast would make us two people who were just like also not just in love with the show, but just genuinely interested in like sex and the anthropology of sex and how people learn and talk and communicate about this and how it grows. Like, I think that's something that's been really interesting to me, and people kind of now associate me with like, oh, well, we can talk about sex with you because this is something you talk about frequently. And I'm like, hell yeah, it is. Hell yeah, it is. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I love being like a sexual positive person. So yeah, but we are genuinely curious. I think we say this every episode. If you have questions, or whatever, whatever you want to talk about, we're very open to that. We love any feedback, anything. We're here for that. We're just two broads talking about this fucking show. We got 2 different kind of experiences right now. You might learn something, you might not. If you're curious, if you're not curious, just shoot it. Let's go. So that's kind of the whole point of this ordeal, But yeah. It's been a fun ride so far. I can't believe we're already at 8 episodes in. That's what we're officially like a month and a half, a little bit over a month and a half now.
That's so wild.
So I know it's been such a ride. And so just again, thank you again. That it is, by the way, the end of the episode, right? Oh no, we have that one, the little blurb of like, oh, well, we both wanted someone else and I didn't know, who's right for me. And then Big goes, do you know who's right for me? And he brings Carrie in, trying to insinuate like, oh, you're the person who's right for me. Bullshit. Anyway, and then they kiss. Typical, actually, how many times have we had an episode where they just kind of like blabbily been like, oh, and then like Carrie just melts into Big, like at the end of every episode. We do kind of have a repeat of that here.
Yeah.
And then as they kiss in this episode, they're like, oh my God, yes, you're made for me. Barbara's like in the distance. And then she walks away and like vanishes. So they're like, okay, no more Barbara. We don't have to worry about the ex-wife anymore because Carrie just sunk into Big's arms. Anyway. That's the end.
The end.
So goofy.
Yeah. It's an interesting episode. I don't think that the show, like the writers themselves, were very pro threesome, just based off of how everything ended. But
I can kind of see that. I feel like back then, though, it definitely was a little more taboo, more so than it is now. I don't know. I mean, it's always hard to tell. Everyone, there's going to be prudes in every generation, you know? Just, if you're into it, you're into it. If it's consensual, it's consensual. Game on. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life or not live your life.
that's, you know what? That's a good note to leave it on.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
But yeah, so there is the end of season 1, episode 8, Three's a Crowd. We got through it after our little week-long break. So I'm so happy we're back into it, back into the podcasting session. I missed it a lot. So I'm glad we're back into it. I'm glad we're putting out another episode. It feels good to be back. So we are excited to keep churning it out. We got a couple more episodes in the season. We have 12, right? We have 12. So we got 9, 10, 11, and 12. We got 4 more episodes of season 1, and then we are done with season 1, which will be really exciting. I don't know if we have talked about this before, but we are, her and I at least are discussing about having the last episode as a live stream. So that's something we are discussing. And if that's something you guys might be interested in, I think that's something we want to put for at least the last episode of this season, or maybe have that as a trend as like the final episode of the seasons. But something we're thinking about. I think it'd be really fun to interact with you guys or whoever wants to interact with live for the podcast. We're excited. We're thinking about it. So let us know your thoughts and concerns. But yeah, so we will be back next week with episode 9. My goodness, here we are already. But yeah, so thanks for sticking around. Thanks for being patient for the last week. We really appreciate it. Back to be back in the damn saddle. So hell yeah. But we will see you guys next week. Thank you again so much. So we love you guys so much. Thank you. See you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.